brother, a father, an artist, an icon. Little Joe is considered one of the most popular singers in the state of Texas. He has won 4 Grammys and 1 Latin Grammy, mixing polkas and politics into a sound that has defined generations of Chicanos all over the U.S. Another one of our guests tonight will be Emma González of Edinburgh, Texas. She is a highly awarded and accomplished author. She has 2 awards from the International Latino Book Award for her nonfiction book, Field Mice, and is the author of No Llores, Chingón, an American story, The Life of Little Joe. What was it like to be thrust into the music industry at 17 years old?
Well, for me, there was not a whole lot of industry in Texas at that time. And I was a very shy kid, and but I did have dreams of recording one day after I got started with my cousin's band, David Coronado, the Latinaires. There's only four of us, 4 kids that made up the Latinaires. So David, my cousin, who put the band together, would actually have to chase me down to rehearse because I loved the music. I wanted to learn to play guitar, but I didn't want to be in front of the audience. So I recorded it actually at the age of 18 in 1958 for Torero Records in Corpus Christi as a guitarist, not as a vocalist.
And so when was the first time that you recorded as a vocalist?
That would have been in 1960 for Corona Records in San Antonio. And I started with 4 songs, actually. 2 English songs. My brother Jesse, who died in a car accident in '64, wrote one of the songs and I wrote the other, and 2 of the Spanish songs were my dad's compositions.
So at what point did you transition from the Latinaires, which from what I'm gathering was very family, to La Familia?
During the time when I started touring, of course out of state of Texas, but California in the mid-60s, 66, 67. So it was a completely different scene for me that I'd never been involved with. And there were musicians from all over the world converging in the Bay Area. And a lot of Latin jazz was happening and Latin rock. And of course, Carlos Santana was about to break out, and a lot of local groups that I got introduced to and worked with. And what I call Latinismo that I was not exposed to here in Texas, everything in Texas music-wise. On the radio, of course, was the country music, and the music I heard as a kid were the jukeboxes in the little bars in the black neighborhood where I lived, and the music in the homes of my friends where I sometimes would spend the night with it. Overnight, they were all black kids. So, and of course the music that my dad and his brothers and sisters and compadres would make music in our home and my dad's home. So when I got to California, it was just a complete different scene for me. And I just knew that I needed to make a change. I needed to change the name from Latinaires to La Familia, and I needed to change the music as well.
You were considered one of the hugest influences in the Chicano movement. Were you aware of that at the start, or was this something that you kind of stumbled upon later, how your voice, your change, your musical change impacted that movement?
Well, I became aware of a lot of issues that I would have never otherwise known if I had not toured through California. And of course, one of them was the farm workers, but others. And I needed to change, I wanted to change the music. As I said, there's Latin jazz groups and salsa and just all diverse music scene that was nowhere near here. So I got inspired by that, and I grew up listening to the big band era.
Okay.
All my family, brothers and sisters, my mom, they all loved great music, all the crooners, all the male and female singers of the time, all the big bands. So that was already bred into me. And if I could make a living playing jazz, I would do that. But that's for me, jazz. It's, you know.
So is jazz your first love?
And I incorporate that into the music that I record. But I was not aware that what was happening to me would transform to the audience and to the people in general. But when I met Cesar Chavez and got involved with the farm workers, and there were a lot of other, I'm honored to say I marched with the Brown Berets, con la Raza Unida, con los Chicanos por la Causa, with the farm workers. I like marches and I like protests.
And why is that?
Because people have something to say and they should be heard. And because if you don't protest, if you don't holler, scream, and, you know, make people pay attention to you, the trend continues. And the trend meaning, you know, the oppression, the disparities that I know so well, you know, so.
What was a moment for you that you feel comfortable to share where that disparity was aimed at you? Where that oppression was aimed at you?
Well, that goes back to when I was a child, and as I said, I was raised in a completely black neighborhood, maybe 2-3 other Chicano families there. So I recall going to a movie, Downtown Temple, the Bell Theater, and with 3 of my friends, and one of them was my age, and the next one was, the next 2 were a little older than I, so when we got to the theater, and we walked in, and they wanted to separate us. They wanted to send the black kids up to the balcony and keep me on the floor. I must have been about 6 or 7 years old, and started freaking out and got scared, and of course, I started crying, you know. And so they let me go upstairs with my friends. And right then and there, I knew there was something different, and I was wondering, why did they do that to me? And I was just a child. But that I remember, that was the first time that it just felt wrong, you know? Why did I have to scream, cry, just to... I went to the movies with my friends. Why did they get separated? And that would be the first instance. And of course, there were many to come, especially being in a touring band. And there were always black musicians in the band. After I got started with Little Joe, the name Little Joe and the Latinaires. So there was always a lot of discrimination, you know, and a lot of times we slept in parks, you know, in the vehicles or on grass, or because we were not allowed to stay in hotels, motels. Same thing with the restaurants. And to me, there was, you know, there was nothing to decide. Either we all get served or we don't, you know. I was in charge of the guys in the band. So that has continued. And, you know, unfortunately, that is still so much there.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, now it's really bubbled up. And it's unfortunate, and maybe that's just the way of the world, but I still want to protest, holler, and scream.
And that's good. It's so inspiring to have someone in your very unique position, because you have a huge impact, a huge voice in the community, not just regionally, but nationally.
In 1968, I had just started my own record company, Buena Suerte Records, and I met with the record company, Capitol Records, in Hollywood. My brother John and I did, and they gave me a recording contract, and so I didn't even give it a second thought or had an agent read it for me or anything. I just said, no, thank you. It's not what I want to do, And I had just started my record company, as I said. But I've been fortunate that way. I guess you could say there's a price to pay, which has been no problem for me. I've been in and out of the major labels because of that, I need to do what I want to do because I'm not the great talent that people think I am. I have to do certain things the way I do them because they work for me, So I'll work with anybody, producers, writers, directors. I'm happy to work with anybody. But deep down inside, I know what it is that I need to do in order to make it work for me. I'm always wanting to learn, and I do from others. Every musician that ever worked with me, there's been so many great talents, have something to offer, and I'm always ready to learn from them. But as far as the business from the Latiners to La Familia, it's just a continuation, and because in those days, back in the 50s, well, starting earlier than that, of course, but when I started to record, most all the music that we knew of, the Spanish language music, was imported. So we didn't have an outlet, the bands like my band, to record. So that was prompted me to start my own record company. And I wanted the market to grow. So I recorded under my label 25, 30 different artists. I started by putting a band together, putting the music together, taking it, rehearsing it, getting it ready, taking it to the studio, recording it, and then getting what we call press, have the records made, and then distributing, and then promoting. And I was okay with doing all that, but the hardest part was getting paid. While people would think that those were hardships, those are, for me, the best experiences I could have ever had in the music industry, to learn how it's all put together, how it's all done, from the bottom up. And so when I got it with the major labels, the first major label I worked with, we would do in-store promotions. And there was no, wait. Well, I had already been in business for 25 years on my own. So I put my own promotions out in the in-stores, in the Walmarts, or wherever they happened to be. And they were freaking out. How did you do that? It's like, well, how do you guys do it? So learning the business of the industry is super important if you're going to survive, because there's so much talent that does not get to be discovered because of the business. And I think that's just a terrible loss. And then again, the old saying, hace más el que quiere, el que puede. He who wants to does more than he who can. And there's a lot of talent that can but won't. And there's a lot of talent, artists, recording artists, singers, or musicians that go into the business. And that's always good for the industry.
You received your first Grammy Award in 1991 for Best Mexican, if I'm correct, Mexican American album?
Yes. Things happen, good things, and they don't register right away.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, great, I got nominated. And, oh, I won an award. It takes a while. I don't know. I guess because I don't expect these things. But anyway, I dedicated that to the memory of my little brother, Jesse, who I had made a promise at his graveside that I would stay with the music because that was his vision. You know, he really was the one that wanted me to become a name in the industry, in the business. And so that first Grammy, of course, and all the rest, but the first one, especially for my little brother Jesse.
And tell us a little bit more about that relationship. And was there a time that you wanted to leave the music industry?
No, because I had no alternatives, no options. Go back to picking cotton, I couldn't do that. The machines came in and took over, so I was done there. No, I never wanted to leave the music, but when I brought my brother Jesse into the band, we were working at a manufacturing company, and he forced me to quit because he said, "Look, Joe, I'm not going to do both jobs. I'm going to be a full-time musician." And I thought, wow, I mean, we're just getting started, you know. Our first recordings were going really well. But that, he made up his mind, and I thought, I can't let him go out there by himself. So, you know, okay, I'll quit too. And, you know, I'll just have to work harder at putting this thing together, making it work. But that was really how I got to music full time. And he was such an incredible talent, unschooled, but he played bass, wrote songs, played piano, and was even teaching me guitar chords. But that was him. One particular instance, we're in my mom's home, and there's a piano there, and he's sitting at it. He was playing bass, and sitting next to the piano, and there's this little girl that walks in, and she's about 8, 9 years old. Long black hair, beautiful big eyes, just a neighborhood little girl. And her name was Ramona. And she walked up to him, he said, "I'm going to write you a song." And he started playing the piano. "Ramona, Ramona, I love you." So he wrote the whole song right there and then. And I said, "Wouldn't you write that song, Jesse?" He said, "Just now." It was just incredible. So that's what Jesse was. And when we recorded, he would sing the Carmen. He would stay back. He always pushed me to the spotlight to front the band. So when he died, of course, you know, if I didn't let him go out on his own when he quit the manufacturing job to be a full-time musician, I was hell not gonna stop playing music that I wasn't gonna let him down then. So that's why when I got my first Grammy, I was dedicated to him.
You're truly an artist because you don't just go up on stage and just go, okay, I'm going to park and bark. I have my mic, I'm just going to sing. You're building an experience. And that's one of those things that I admire you so deeply for. From the moment that I saw you in San Juan, all the other times I've seen you since, is that you truly build a one-of-a-kind experience every single time. And it's, in my opinion, one of the many reasons why you are probably one of the most lauded performers in Texas.
Thank you. Well, you know, that keeps it fresh for me. They ask, how do you keep things fresh? How do you keep it going? Well, I foresee the shows, depending on where I'm at, what kind of show I want. You know, next week I'm doing something for the veterans. I already know I'll open up with America the Beautiful, then I'll play a song I recorded for them on La Guerra Ya Me Llevan. That sets the tone. Mm-hmm. You know, once we get started, you know. But each show, long before I get there, I know I want to dress like I think about what I want to say and why and to whom. Things may change, but so it's always fun for me. I anticipate these things, you know. And but the bottom line is the energy from the people. And here in my older age, I've really paid attention and discovered that there's a lot of love at my concerts, just a lot of love. That is just worth everything I've ever done with the music. Just see the people, they sing, they cry, they hug each other, and it's just amazing how much love music can produce. It's magic.
It truly is.
So I had people that wanted to write my life story, and I didn't feel there was much for me to just tell about my story. But through the years, as time went on, and my the elders in my family started to pass away, and I had a brother, Porfirio, second oldest in the family, who was a family historian.
Okay.
So he was real interested, of course, in who we were. He found the family tree. He did a lot of research, so he knew all the all that he could dig up on my dad's side and my mom's side, and he just had a big interest of art, of history, but especially La Familia Hernández, de Leon Hernández. So he would write, and sometimes we'd be in conversation. He would tell us, "Look, the beauty of the family and who you are, we are, how we originated, and where we come from." So all of that, stayed with me, of course. And when I decided that it was time to tell my story, I needed, as I said, I was very honored to have authors that wanted to write the story. But I decided that I would need someone to understand what I was going to tell as a story, and to be written to where it was understood at a level that, just pretty much anyone could read and understand. And when I found out about Emma's background, which is, we probably picked the same cotton patches, along the way. So after reading Film Eyes and learning more about her history, I thought she'll be the perfect person that I could relate this to, and I think she will write it the way I'd like to see it written. And
Because there have been people that have written about you or about the Latin years, or so many different things. But you're right. There is something truly unique about how you write this, Emma, that really digs deep into who he is, not the persona.
I think the most amazing thing, and what makes the book, and I already took over your portion of the show here, was that my dad was writing his life story. I remember walking into his house, and he'd have a beer there and a joint, and he'd be writing, and he said this to my mom: "Mira, los hijos ahorita no me ponen atención, they're not paying attention to what I'm writing, but un día de estos les va a servir para algo. One of these days,
It's going to mean something.
It's going to mean something." And he wrote about 4 or 5 ledgers, both sides of the pages, and shame on me, somehow we didn't keep up with those ledgers, and time went on, and then I changed offices, and in doing so, I found the first book where I started writing. And my brother had already done some translating on it. And we were, about 85% done.
80% done with the book. Almost.
Emma, look what I found.
She's like, okay.
Send it to me. And that's where the book starts, my dad's story. And it was just, for me, still, I continue to say, that to me, that gave the book the power from my dad's story, how he got here, when he got here, what he had to go through. And we're both amazed that his memory was so clear, he just so detailed.
I read in an interview that you have submitted, or the book has been submitted to the Library of Congress.
Right.
And with the hopes that it will be inducted.
Joe's an entertainer, but on stage he's a humanitarian, 100%. He's an activist 100% on causes that are issues that affect the people, and he brings that message to them. That reflects on his life of what he was shown in his family, the values. And those values now are part of the history of his life and his family. No one else has that. So I think when they induct these books, or like who the person's written about, it's because they merit that, and he merits that very much so. His story and his family stories are identical to the millions of other families coming from Mexico. His family coming from, during the revolution, they were ousted out of their hacienda, out of their home. Their uncle lynched, and he was the one able to hold off everybody else from being killed. That would have wiped out the Hernández family. The book was entered in the Best Family History Book category at the International Latino Book Awards in 2021, and we brought home the gold.
What would you tell the young me?
I think I would say, what I would say today is like, be who you are, regardless. That's all you can be. I say that to kids today. It's like, don't try to be or dream to be something you're not. Be yourself, and you'll be able to accomplish the things that you're able to accomplish. A lot of children, kids, and people in general get lost because they don't know who they are, and gracias a Dios, I'm grounded because I know me. I know who I am, you know, and I know that because I learned that from my parents as far back as I can remember, you know. I live by the principles that I've always have, and that's from my family. My dad was a very wise person, you know, not an educated person, but a very wise person, and a very giving person, you know, he just loved to share, loved to give. So he brought all the family up like that, you know. And about the book, I know the other people that had intentions of writing my life story. They wanted to write about how many Grammys I got and how many tours I did in Japan. Have you been all over Europe? And, you know, you were with the, you know,
All your
at the
accolades.
White House, and you know, that's all great. But I wanted the people to know about my family, and I knew that that story would relate to millions of others. There was a lot of millions of little Joe in the cotton fields, you know. I wanted the story to be, if you want to know who I am, you have to go to my roots, you know, the Grammys and all the awards, which I'm totally grateful that, you know, the award today, you know, that's so meaningful in my life. But the Joe that I wanted Emma to write about was not about the music world. I wanted her to write about my life story, which is really my family's story.
I thank you for blessing us this evening with such a wonderful conversation, and there's just not enough time to really dig into the depth of story and legacy that both of you have built today. But thank you both very much for coming here for an evening with Little Joe.
Thank you. Thank you all. Gracias.
Yo le digo a mis amigos, los que les gusta tomar, que nunca se den al vicio que los pueda dominar, que en este mundo tirano hay que sabernos tantear. Las notas que estoy cantando me nacen del corazón, y con todo sentimiento las pongo en esta canción para ver si así descansa este pobre corazón. Las nubes que van pasando se paran a lloviznar, parece que se sostienen cuando a mí me oyen cantar. Cuando a mí me oyen cantar, se paran